Hello. Welcome to this video, and in true Ellen fashion, it is incredibly late. I really did try to get these videos up a lot sooner, but the beginning of this year of 2026 was very stressful and chaotic, and I had no time to film. But here I am, finally filming, so hopefully eventually we'll edit and get these up before the end of the month is my goal at this point. Welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in 2025 and really discussing with you the ones that I really liked and the ones that I didn't like. And also, my favorite part, go through some stats. So behind me right now, currently, I have most of the books that I read in 2025. I couldn't fit all of them on here because right now I have it by month, and then ignore those over there. I am still in the process of deep cleaning my room, so I just have books everywhere right now because I'm like reorganizing my shelves. Well, let's just get started because we have a lot to talk about. And I think first I want to start with stats. I did read a total of 102 books. I DNF'd 7 of those, so if you don't count the DNFs, then it's 95 books. But I count DNFs because technically I read them and I tried to give them a chance. But I think I did pretty good. I did reach my goal. My goal was to read 100 books and I did 102. So here's all the books split up by the month in which I read them. Clearly my best month was July. That was the only other video I think I did this year, which I tried to read a book a day. So I read 31 books in 31 days for that video. If you want, you can watch it. I'll link it down below. My worst month was March with only 3 books. And then here are those books divided by page count. And this pretty much matches up with the month. My best month page count wise was July, worst was March. Pretty obvious. But total I read 26,464 pages. Here is the graph of my DNFs. So I mostly DNF'd in February, but they were still pretty sporadic throughout the year. And then here are my reasonings for DNFing those books. The main reason was just unclear plot. Here's my reading method, and it's pretty evenly, but mostly mixed media, which essentially just means I read the book both physically and audiobook. Like I would go back and forth, or I would do it at the same time. So here's my series versus standalone. I mainly read standalones, but I do tend to enjoy series, but I need to be better at finishing series. I feel like that's the same with all readers. I think we're all pretty bad at finishing series, so that is definitely a goal for 2026. But for 2025, I did start 15 series. I read 20 sequels. I finished 8 series, and then I DNF'd 4 series. All right, now let's talk about genre. I read 10 different genres. My main genre was romance, and my second genre was fantasy, and I can guarantee you I rarely read romantasy. So don't think that that means I'm a romantasy girl. I may dabble in romantasy, but like not often. And it's typically not like my favorite genre. The least genre that I read was thriller, which I guess kind of makes sense. I'm not also really a thriller mystery girl. I kind of have to be in the mood for those, and it's rare when I'm in the mood, but sometimes I am in the mood. So book length, this isn't really too exciting. It seems pretty generic. Most of my books are within like the 300 to 400 page mark. Here's the book format. I typically read novels, which is, I feel like, normal for me, for sure. But I do dabble a little bit with like graphic novels, poems, and novellas. Those novellas definitely came in handy for my reading 31 books in 31 days challenge. I did read 5 translated works. They were all pretty sporadic. I read 1 German, 1 Icelandic, 1 Portuguese, 1 French, and 1 Japanese. Star ratings, this is the big one. My average star rating was 3.5. Not where I want it to be, if I'm being honest. I would like it to be above 3.5, but we're right dab in the middle. 3.5 is my average rating. The most was 3.5, but right close after that is 4. So I was really in the 3.5 range for this year. And I only had 5 stars. It's so hard for me to give books 5 stars for some reason. Books and movies. It's like, at this point, 5 stars are a feeling. And I don't get that feeling very often. and it's upsetting. Right now I typically read adult books. It is mainly adult, but every now and then I'll read some YA or middle grade. Publication year, mainly read books from 2025 and 2024. Feel like that's normal for me. Now, LGBTQ plus representation, I am always disappointed in myself every year for this. It is a goal of mine to at least make it half and half, but I think this one is closer than last year's. We've got 63% have had no LGBTQ representation in it. So I'm getting closer, but we gotta be better. And then of course below that is the breakdown of all the LGBTQ plus stuff that I read within books, and it was mainly lesbian. Author POC, this is definitely the most disappointing on my list of stats. 79% was not POC. This is so embarrassing. Like, I don't even want to show it to you guys, but I'm going to keep myself accountable. So next year, because I think I did better with this last year with 2024. So I'm disappointed in myself. This needs to change and be fixed. This also, I would like for it to be half and half, like 50-50. But of course below that, again, is the breakdown, and most of the representation was with Black authors. Most of the books I read are written by women. I have like one non-binary author that I typically love to read every year. I need to find more. I do want to find more non-binary authors. I think that's another goal for 2026. Nationality, typically mostly American. I live in America. That's just how it tends to be. But I would like to read more translated fiction. So before we saw, I only read like 5 translated works. I want to try to get more into translated stuff. And then lastly, most of the authors that I read from before, I have read again in 2025. But it was still quite close to being even with new authors and authors I've read from before. Editing voiceover Ellen here, because I forgot to also mention the books that made me cry, and there were only 3 books that made me cry in the year 2025. I would actually like for more books to make me cry, because I really like to feel emotions when I'm reading books. So here's to hoping in 2026 there's more books that make me cry. All right, and those are the stats. Now let me go through this portion. If this is a portion of videos you don't like, you can skip it. I will put timestamps down below, so it'll be easier to skip. But I tend to love these parts of videos. They're so, like, it's very tedious and boring, but like, I am invested and interested in this section. But I'm just going to go through every single book that I read, all 102 books that I read, and give you what my star rating was. And then after that, I will then go through my bottom 10 and my top 10. So we're going to do this by month. And so the very first book that I read in 2025 was Wrapped by Nicole Parker. I'm not going to go through what every single book is about, but I do need to explain there are some sentient object romance books within this stack. I do rate those differently than I rate actual books, but it is very hard for me to give any of these types of books over a 3.5. And so this one was a 2.5. Then I read First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I read All That Is Wicked by Kate Winkler Dawson, and I gave this 4.5 stars. Taken by My TBR by Holly Wilde, I gave this 2 stars. Another sentient object romance. With a stack of books. Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, I gave 3.5 stars. And then the last book for January was Adrift in Currents, Clean and Clear by Shannon McGuire. I gave this 3.5 stars. For February, I read Reckless by Lauren Roberts, which I gave 4 stars. Then I read What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez, and I gave this 4 stars. I read The Five by Hallie Rubenhold, The Untold Stories of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper. I gave this 4 stars. I read Faulty by Nicole Parker. This was a sentient object romance with a Furby, and it was terrifying. I gave it 2 stars. I read Dating and Dragons by Christy Boyce, which I gave 4.5 stars. This next book I currently don't own. It is being loaned out to a friend right now, but that is The Wedding People by Alison Eschbach. Oh god, I can't remember the last name, but I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read Looking for Love and All the Haunted Places by Claire Kahn, and I gave it 2 stars. Then I read Recognizing the Stranger by Isabella Hamed on Palestine and Narrative, and I gave this 4.5 stars. Then I read Do Your Worst by Rosie Dannon, which I gave 1.5 stars. And then the last book in February that I read is The 100 by Cass Morgan, and I gave it 4 stars. Next we have March, which of course was my lowest reading month of the year. And the first book I read was Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake, and I gave it 2 stars. I read Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton, which I gave 3.5 stars. Then I read The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O, and I gave this 3.5 stars. So the beginning of April, I read Day 21 by Cass Morgan. I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read It's in His Kiss by Julia Quinn. I gave 2.5 stars. Then one of my rereads, Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, which is still a 5-star, still holds up. My rereading this time, I decided to like really tab and highlight a ton of things and like analyze everything. Then I read Who Da F Wants to Know by Huda Fahmy, and I gave this 4.5 stars. And then I read Sky Daddy by Kate Folk, which I gave 3.5 stars. This is a full-length sentient object romance that surprisingly was really good, and I actually kind of want to give it 4 stars. It definitely makes me want to read more Kate Folk, that's for sure. Then I read Wonderstruck by Brian Selznick, which I gave 3.5 stars. I then read The Favorites by Lane Fargo, and I gave it 5 stars. I DNF'd The Message. Oh, I probably should mention my DNFs. There were a few other DNFs I had in that list. Dang it. But I DNF'd The Message by Tanahashi Coates. I feel like the reasoning... I didn't rate this one, because I felt weird rating this when I tend to rate my DNFs, but this one I felt awkward rating this DNF just because it's nonfiction, and it is about something I'm interested in, but it's just, I think Tanahashi Coates' writing is not for me. The first book I read in May was Where the Library Hides by Isabel Ibanez, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read Saga Volume 12 by Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan. I gave this 3 stars. Then I read Stiff, which was 2.5 stars. I read Dear Reader by Tate James. I gave 4 stars. I read Homecoming by Cass Morgan. I gave it 3.5 stars. We Could Be Magic by Marissa Meyer. I gave 4.5 stars. The Dust of 100 Dogs by A.S. King. I gave 3.5 stars. A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This was actually also a DNF, but I gave it 2 stars. The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand, I gave 3.5 stars. And then lastly, The Life of Chuck, I gave 3.5 stars. All right, now we're on to the stack of 31 books for that month of July. First book in that month that I read was Country Fail by Killian Sunderman, Some Cunt's Guide to the Countryside. I gave this 3 stars. Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear by Mosab Abu Toha, I gave it 3 stars. Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk, I gave 3.5 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 8 by Rachel Smythe, I gave 4 stars. Pet by Akweki Emezi, I gave 4 stars. The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher, I gave 3.5 stars. Rebellion by Cass Morgan, I gave 3.5 stars. On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century, I gave 5 stars. I Hope You Stay by Courtney Peppernell, I gave 3.5 stars. Nights in Rodanthe by Nicholas Sparks, I gave 2 stars. Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones, I gave 3 stars. This World Is Not Yours by Kemi Ashingiwa, I DNF'd this and I gave it 1.5 stars. Deep in Uranus by Missy Love. This was a 1 star and probably the worst thing I have ever read. All right, and then I read these 2 books. I read Dungeon Club Roll Call and Dungeon Club Time to Party, both by Molly Knox Ostertag and Xanthi Buma. These were both 4 stars. Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, I gave 3.5 stars. Save Me by Mona Caston, I gave 4.5 stars. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanoff, I gave this 4 stars. Cold Sweat by Vera Valentine, sentient object romance with essentially the Kool-Aid Man. And it was a 3.5. I will say, I think Vera Valentine's my favorite of the sentient object romance authors. I like her writing. The Ghosts of Rose Hill by R.M. Romero, I gave 3.5 stars. The Night Guest by Hildur Nutsdotter, I gave it 4 stars. And I definitely butchered the name. Another name I'm probably going to butcher. But this is But Not Too Bold by Hashe Pueyo, and I gave this 3 stars. Who Ate the First Oyster by Cody Cassidy, The Extraordinary People Behind the Greatest Firsts in History, I gave it 2.5 stars. Wolfpack by Amelia Brunskill, I gave 2.5 stars. The Seventh Veil of Salome by Silvia Moreno Garcia, I gave 4 stars. The Stars Beneath Our Feet by David Barclay Moore, I gave this 3 stars. Nimbus by Nicole Parker, a sentient object romance with a cloud, I gave it 2.5 stars. It was interesting. I was very curious how they were going to do, you know, sex with a cloud. But now I know how that works. From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doty, I gave 4 stars. Spread by Nicole Parker, sentient object romance with a spatula. 3 stars. And then Solved by Nicole Parker, which was a sentient object romance with a Rubik's Cube, a 3 star. And then the last book for that month was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, and I gave it 4 stars. Now on to August. The first book I read in August was Fearless by Lauren Roberts, which I gave 4 stars. Watch Your Back by Tate James, I gave 4 stars. The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley, I gave 3.5 stars. The Last Love Note by Emma Gray, I gave 4 stars. And then Suitor Armor Volume 1 by Purpa, I gave 4 stars. Now for September, I read Suitor Armor Volume 2 by Purpa, which I gave 4 stars. With a Vengeance by Riley Sager, I gave 5 stars. Suitor Armor Volume 3 by Purpa, 4 stars. Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley, I gave 4 stars. And then The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee, I gave 3.5 stars. We're getting close, guys. It is now October. The first book I read in October was Out of the Ashes by Courtney Peppernell, 3.5 stars. Dungeon Club Final Face Off by Molly Knox Ostertag and Xanthi Buma, I gave 4 stars. You're Next by Tate James, I gave 3.5 stars. Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins, a reread, and this is still a 4 star. That was what I gave it the first time, it's what I'm still giving it. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry, I gave 3 stars. Hecate's The Witch by Nikita Gill, I gave 5 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 9 by Rachel Smythe, I gave 3.5 stars. A Winter in New York by Josie Silver, I gave 3.5 stars. I Got Abducted by Aliens, and Now I'm Trapped in a Rom-Com by Kimberly Lemming. This, I believe, was a DNF, and I gave it 2 stars. The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, I gave this 2.5 stars. Shift by Nicole Parker, kind of a sentient object romance. It's a werewolf, so I don't really see that as a sentient object. But it was a 2.5 for me. And then The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson, I gave 4 stars. All right, in November, I read The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and I gave this 3 stars. A book that I don't physically own because I bought it, read it, and then returned it the next day, and that is I'm Sad and Horny by Haley Lou Richardson. I gave it 1 star. It Happened One Fight by Maureen Lee Lanker, I gave 3 stars. Antimatter Blues by Edward Ashton, I gave 4 stars. A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, I gave 4 stars. Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, I gave 4 stars. All right, and then last month, December, I read The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I gave 4.5 stars. In The Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, I am so upset to say this was a DNF, and I gave it 2 stars. Lost Evangeline by Kate DiCamillo. I gave this 4.5 stars. Christmas with Charles Dickens. It was a 1 star. There was literally a short story in here where uncles were encouraging cousins to make out with each other, and oh God. Get me away from that. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, I gave 3.5 stars. And then the last book that I read in 2025 was Pen Pal by J.T. Geisinger, and I gave it 2.5 stars. And now it is time to go through my bottom and my top books from the year 2025. Let's start with the honorable mentions for my bottom 10. So at number 15, I have It's in His Kiss by Julia Quinn. This is the 7th book in the Bridgerton series. I'm just reading this series because I do love the show. The book series is okay. I think this is one of its better books, if I'm being honest. This is Hyacinth's love story, and I did quite enjoy it, but again, like, these books are just so plain and simple that it is hard for me to really get invested and really love these stories. But I'm trying to read them all, so I kind of know what's going on when I go into the show, because a lot of times they're putting in little hints and stuff of other siblings' romance stories. And I just want to know what's going on. And number 14 is Pen Pal by J.T. Geisinger. I kind of got into a little bit of dark romance this year. I really loved Tate James's Dear Reader series and was trying to find something similar, and this is not what I thought it was. I think that's my main gripe with this book, is I went in thinking one thing and it ended up not being that thing at all. And then the ending, it was very shocking, I will say. Of all my 2.5 stars, which is pretty much what this honorable mention is, it was one of the ones I enjoyed. So I had enjoyment wise, it was good, but writing and the logic was just not good. Yeah, because I'm trying not to give away the ending, and so The ending was shocking, but at the same time, a lot of things still didn't quite make sense to me and didn't feel like it really worked. All right, next is Wolf Pack by Amelia Brunskill. To be honest, I do not remember this book at all. I remember nothing about this book except it follows a bunch of teenage girls. So the fact that like this book is that forgettable, yeah. Next is Stiff by Mary Roach. This is a nonfiction about the curious lives of human cadavers, and it was interesting. I mean, I was interested in this topic in a sense of like, I was curious what happens to dead bodies once they're dead, like all the different things dead bodies can do. Like if, you know, you're donated to science, this is what happens when it's donated to science. This is what happens. And this is like how it was like in history, and just like all these fun like information that I was interested in. And I don't think Mary Roach approached it in a way that was interesting to me. I was not a fan of Mary's writing style, and the way that she presented the facts was not for me. But I know a lot of people do love this book. Okay, and the last of my honorable mentions is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I read a Ruth Ware book, I want to say 2 years ago, and I enjoyed that one. So I was excited to read another Ruth Ware, but this, and also like this was becoming a movie, so I thought it'd be fun to read the book and then watch the movie. Spoiler, I also didn't like the movie because I didn't like the book. The book is also so different from the movie, to a point where I'm like, it's not even the same story. Yeah, this was just a boring thriller, and also a lot of things didn't quite make sense logically. Oh, and the characters were all very annoying. All right, so those are my honorable mentions. Let's go into my bottom 10. At number 10, I have Who Ate the First Oyster by Cody Cassidy. So another nonfiction that sounded really interesting. It was going to be about, you know, all these people behind the greatest firsts in history. Like, here we go. Who really invented the wheel? Who told the first joke? Who brewed the first beer? Who was the murderer in the first murder mystery? You know, like all these different random things. And it's like, oh, who started it? And most of them, it was just like, oh, we don't know, but it's possibly someone like this. And it was just like, that's not what I came here for. A lot of the facts seemed more speculation than actual facts, and it kind of pissed me off. Yeah, so again, another one where I was like interested in the facts, but it was not presented to me in a way that I liked or appreciated. But I did end up reading the entire book and finishing it. I should have DNF'd it, but I didn't. At number 9, I have In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I did DNF this. I made it, honestly, I want to say like 65% of the way through. And everybody I know loves this book. I'm the only one that I know of who didn't enjoy this book. But this is also a nonfiction memoir told in a really interesting way. And that was not a way I enjoyed. A lot of people rave about the writing style. For me, the writing style was like too flowery and too confusing and just kind of like too all over the place. I couldn't, it was like very hard for me to follow along. I was struggling. So that's why this is in my bottom. And at number 8 is Nights in Rodanthe by Nicholas Sparks. I have read a bunch of Nicholas Sparks books before and I really enjoyed them. And I do remember watching this movie a ton of years ago. Honestly, I want to even say like over a decade ago. And I remember liking the movie. So I was really excited to like get into the book. But this was the boringest romance I think I've ever read. It was like, I feel like nothing happened. It was just so boring. That's all I have to say about it. Okay. Number 7, I have A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This was also a DNF. Very upsetting because of how gorgeous this book is. Like these sprayed edges. I just want to keep them on my shelf and like, that's gorgeous. Hold on a sec. There's definitely something underneath. Like, look how gorgeous this book is. But unfortunately, this was one where like the plot was confusing. I didn't understand what was going on. Again, this one I also made it a little more than halfway through. But I wasn't feeling, I think there was supposed to be a romance, and I wasn't really getting the romance. Like, I didn't feel the chemistry. Again, I have no idea what this book is about. I'm still so confused as to what this is about. I just know we're following, like, two teens. They're studying something, and we're in a fantasy world. Yeah, didn't quite understand what was going on with that one. Number 6 is Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. Oh, did I DNF this or did I finish it? I'm pretty sure I finished this one, and it also sucked. I was like so looking forward to this. I was really thinking Olivia Blake was going to be like a favorite author of mine, and I thought like this was going to be such like a sweeping romance that was going to like overtake me, and it didn't. I didn't like this romance. I kind of found it a little bit toxic, and it was also supposed to be like sci-fi, and I didn't really feel the sci-fi elements of it. This is also a book that I'm really starting to forget a lot of things that happened in here. I think we talked about bees quite a lot in this book, and I still did not understand what bees had to do with this story at all. And it made me mad. All right, number 5 on my bottom list is I got abducted by aliens, and now I'm trapped in a rom-com by Kimberly Lemming. I read Kimberly Lemming's other series last year, and it was okay. And then she came out with this book, and I was like, this title is the funniest title I think I've ever like read. She's always got great titles for her books. And so I was really like hoping this one was going to be a win. And I couldn't even finish this book. The writing was terrible. The storyline was like not interesting at all. And our main character was like pissing me off because of how like annoying she was. Yeah, so this was no bueno for me. At number 4, I have Looking for Love in All the Haunted Places by Claire Kahn. This was a DNF. I was very upset to DNF this. Because again, Claire Kahn is an author I really want to like, and this was my first time trying her out. I think I have like one other book by her that I'm still going to give a try. But yeah, this was like a haunted house romance that I was like really interested in. But the thing that pissed me off the most, I think, with this book was the fact that the filming, because she, I think, either hired or these people just came to her home to film for like a paranormal activity TV show. The way that they were doing the filming just logically didn't make any sense. And then all of a sudden, to just like in the middle of filming, they completely changed direction of what they're filming because of something that she said. And like, it was one of those things where like, I know that that can happen, but like the way that it happened just was like, that would never happen. I just said happen a lot in one sentence, and I'm mad about it. But I hated the romance. Nothing logically made sense in this book. Honestly, the only thing that logically made sense was a lot of the paranormal stuff. At number 8, I have Do Your Worst by Rosie Danan. This is like one of my most disappointing because Rosie Danan, all the other books I've read by her, 5 stars. 5 stars. And then this is a 1.5. I think also something I realized this year was paranormal romance, not for me. I don't think paranormal romance is for me, which is upsetting because I actually love paranormal romance when it comes to like movies or TV shows, but for some reason in books, it's like too cheesy. I can't quite remember. This was also a DNF. I'm having trouble remembering about this book. I feel like there was a werewolf in here somewhere, but I know that she's like a curse breaker and he like owns this building that he doesn't believe is cursed, but like someone hires her anyway to break the curse of this building. She's like, oh yeah, no, this building, there's a ton of curses going on here. And so like they're enemies and they're supposed to fall in love. And again, romance sucked. Logic didn't make any sense. And it was just like a lot of things were pissing me off in this book. Number 2, oh my goodness, I just did a really weird number scale. This was 3. What am I doing? 2 is This World Is Not Yours by Kemi Ashingiwa. This was also a DNF. I wish I could tell you what this is about. I have no idea. Even after, I remember like after stopping where I stopped, I was like, I have no idea what this book is about. Which sucks because this is a sci-fi horror and I love sci-fi horror, but I just didn't understand what was happening. And I couldn't keep track of like the characters and it was just, nothing was making sense. So I had to stop reading it. And then my number one least favorite book of the year, I do not own it because I returned it immediately after reading it, and that is I'm Sad and Horny by Haley Lou Richardson. This is poetry by Haley Lou Richardson mixed with like a bunch of photos. I wish I could show you the inside. It was a mess. It is like the messiest book I've ever read in the sense of like format. The poems were just like, I'm sorry, but they were shit. They were shit. They were literally just like a mishmash of words that made no sense, which is so upsetting because I love Haley Lou Richardson as an actress. Everything I feel like I've seen her in, I've enjoyed, but not this. She needs to not do poems. I was hoping it'd be funny based off the title, and it just was a mess. And I wish I could have unread it. Honestly, it's fine because I don't even remember it, so it kind of feels like I've unread it. Thank God. All right, so that's my bottom 10. Let's move on to my top books of the year. I'm going to start with the honorable mentions. Right at number 15, I have Lore Olympus, Volume 8. Lore Olympus series has kind of been just a meh. It's like an okay series. Like, I don't hate it, but it's also, I'm not loving it. But this book surprised me. This is like a Persephone and Hades retelling told in graphic novel format. I remember at first I wasn't liking the art style, but I've gotten used to it and now I like it. And yeah, we're pretty far into their romance by this point. But yeah, I liked it. At number 14, I have Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. I don't really quite know what to say about this one. I enjoyed the themes in this book, I think the most. And the story was interesting. And just like the comparisons like of monsters. Like there's hunting and searching for monsters, but then they find out like the monsters are real people and the things that like real people do that make them monsters that are like not okay. And it's so like easy and scary to be like around monsters. I don't know how to explain it. Like monsters can be like right next door and you don't even know. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this quite a lot. All right, at 13, I have The Night Guest by Hildur Nutsdottir. Again, cannot say that last name. Nutsdottir. It's the like the line above the letters that I don't know how that changes the letter. This is an Icelandic author and it takes place in Iceland, and this is a horror that was very interesting. So with this one, we have this woman who she's constantly waking up like super tired, super exhausted. She's going to doctors. She's talking with her friends. They keep like giving her all this advice, but like none of it's working until finally she decides to wear like one of those watches that tracks how many steps you're walking. And she wakes up and sees that she had walked like 45,000 steps in one night. And it like takes her on this journey trying to figure out what's going on and what's happening with her at nighttime. And it was really interesting. And I would love to read more by this author. I think she is coming out with another book this year, so it's on my radar. 12, I have Lost Evangeline by Kate DiCamillo. This is the third in the Norendi series by Kate DiCamillo. I've been really enjoying the series. The first book is still, I think, my favorite, but this one was also so great. It's like very fairy tale-esque, these stories, and they are middle grade, so I think anyone can read them. But with this, we're following a really tiny, tiny, tiny girl. Like, she's as big as a spool of thread. And this old man, like, finds her and takes care of her, builds her, like, a little dollhouse for her to live in. And they have, like, this really great relationship. But his wife doesn't like her and sells her to someone who finds out about her and is like, I need to have her. And then she escapes from that person and tries to find her way back to her father, or like the old man who she considers her father. And the old man is trying to find her, and it's just this really crazy, chaotic story, but it's very fairy tale-esque, and it was great. All right, and then the last book in my honorable mentions is Who Da F Wants to Know by Huda Fahmy. This is also a third in a series, and I believe this is almost like memoir-ish in a sense. It is a graphic novel, and I believe it's like Huda Fahmy's like life when she was a teenager, and she's just like showing what her life was like. And this is just more tales of her teenage life with her family, her friends, what her life is like. And I've been giving all of these pretty much like 4.5 stars. They've all been really enjoyable and fun to read. Now on to my top 10. At number 10, I have We Could Be Magic by Marissa Meyer. This is also a graphic novel that I was surprised by how much I enjoyed. I thought it was just going to be like cute and fun, and it ended up being incredible. So we have this girl who got this internship at like Disney World or Disneyland. They can't use those words because of copyright reasons, but it's like similar to that kind of a sense. And she really wants to play a princess, but she gets her internship working at like a hot dog stand, I think, or like one of the food stands. But she like really wants to be a princess, but like no one is casting her as a princess because of her size, her weight. But she keeps trying and trying and fighting for it. And she ends up meeting this guy and like falling in love with him. They have a really great, beautiful romance going on throughout this thing. She has like no insecurities about her weight, which is amazing to see, and I love that. Just the kind of also about like just fighting the societal norm and breaking those barriers. And I thought this was very well done, and I loved it a lot. At number 9, I have The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This was so fun. That's like the best word I think I can use for this. I feel like I'm also so behind. Everyone was reading this book way back in 2020, and I'm finally getting to it. The reason it's not a 5-star though is just because the romance I felt was just okay. But other than that, this was so fun. I loved... Oh, I left a bookmark in there. This is like a very cute, cozy fantasy with some romance in it. We have Linus, who basically like works for this magical government, and is like checking all of the orphanages to make sure that these orphanages with very magical children are, you know, in good condition and they've got whatever. Just essentially making sure that they're safe. He goes to this one, and a lot of the orphanages he goes to, he tends to shut down, which is not good for the kids. So these kids are very scared that he's going to shut this one down, especially because they have the Antichrist at this house. Arthur is the head of this orphanage and is like really fighting to like show him that these kids are not actually dangerous and it is fine, even though the entire town wants this orphanage gone because they think that these kids are incredibly dangerous. Which like a part of them kind of are, because some of their magical abilities can be dangerous, but like the children themselves are not dangerous. They are very sweet and funny, and it was very like heartwarming and charming to read. I think the romance was not that great, which is like one of the main reasons it's lower on my list and it's not a 5-star. My favorite child was definitely Chauncey. Also, I'd highly recommend the audiobook for this. I did the audiobook and the physical at the same time, and the voices that the narrator does, perfect. Like, please listen to the audiobook for this one if you get a chance to read this book. But yeah, it was so funny and cute and charming and just filled me with like warm fuzzies. At number 8, I have Save Me by Mona Caston. This is the first book in the Maxton Hall series. I watched Maxton Hall season 1 back in 2024. Loved it. It was one of my favorite television shows of that year. I am so upset I didn't get to season 2 in 2025. It is killing me. But I really wanted to like read the book series. I didn't get to the other books. I only read the first book, and it essentially is like the season of season 1. So of course I'm gonna love it. But this is this is also a translated book. It's a German book that was finally translated into English, so I could finally read the series. It's an academia romance. We've got 2 students, one who is there on scholarship, not doing well money-wise, very close family though. And then we have our other student who is super rich from one of like the richest families in this school, very much stuck up, thinks that he's all that. But then these two end up meeting because she sees something she probably wasn't supposed to see, and he is like, hey, whatever you saw, you need to not tell anybody what you saw. And is like trying to pay her off, but like she's just feeling insulted by that and pissed off and rightfully gets mad at him. But yeah, this is like a true enemies to lovers story that I think was done so well. And yeah, I loved it. I love this romance. I love this series. I can't wait to continue on. At number 7, I have Dating and Dragons by Christy Boyce. This is the second in a series that I can't remember the name of. But the first book in the series was my favorite book from 2024. So it is a little upsetting that this isn't as high up on the list as that one was. And I also don't understand how this is a series because, like, none of the characters in this book are from the first book. Like, the two don't connect, except it's just high schoolers playing D&D and there's romance. Those are the only similarities. So, like, I don't understand why it's a series. But there is another book coming out this year, 2026, within this series, and I'm so excited for it. But yeah, this was just cute. Like I said, it's just teenagers playing D&D, although this one we're following a D&D group that actually plays their games online, and they have a pretty big following. And then we get a new girl being added to the mix and how that affects the dynamic of the friendship and the group that's going on. Yeah, no, I loved it. It was so cute. That's all I have to say about it. Number 6, I have All That Is Wicked by Kate Winkler Dawson. This is a nonfiction, a Gilded Age story of murder and the race to decode the criminal mind. This was fascinating. We're following one specific murderer from the Gilded Age and how the study of his mind led to a lot of diagnoses of like mental illnesses that we have today, and just like how we're able to spot, psychopaths a lot easier these days, in a sense. I don't know how to explain it, but it basically led to like us understanding what psychopath is and what makes a person a psychopath. The study of this guy's brain. And we had like 5 or 7, I think, different people who studied his brain. Hold on a sec. We had an alienist who speculated about the source of the convict's madness. We had a neurologist who wanted to dissect his brain, a phrenologist who analyzed the bumps on his head, a scholar who thought Roloff held the key to a new theory of universal language, and we also had a newspaper man who knew he had a great story to tell. So we looked at his past. We looked at his brain. We looked at like everything about this man and what we all learned about it and how it relates to today. It was fascinating. I thought it was also presented very well and in such a great order. Like, we started from the beginning of his life, essentially, and we would go back and forth between his past and the present, in the sense of like he's in jail and he's talking to this newspaper guy who's gonna like tell his story. And it was also like crazy how manipulative this guy was. Like, he was very smart and very easily able to manipulate this like newspaper man to be on his side. It was crazy and fascinating. And then we go all the way to his death, which was gruesome to read about, actually. So I highly recommend this if you're interested in the study of psychopathy and if you're also interested in true crime. This is a really fascinating book. At number 5, I have Recognizing the Stranger on Palestine and Narrative by Isabella Hammond. This is pretty much what it says. It's about Palestine, but also how different people's narratives of Palestine shape different viewpoints for different people, and just how like storytelling really affects a lot of what people know about Palestine. It was really fascinating and interesting. Just like an example of some stuff in this book that I think this was like written so well. One of the things that I highlighted here was, in real life, shifts in collective understanding are necessary for major changes to occur, but on the human individual scale, they are humbling and existentially disturbing. Such shifts also do not usually come without a fight. Not everyone can be unpersuaded of their worldview through argument and appeal or through narrative. It was just really interesting, fascinating. I enjoyed it a lot. At number 4, we have With a Vengeance by Riley Sager. I love and hate Riley Sager. I have read every single Riley Sager book to this day, and thankfully I have liked more than I have not liked. I think there have been 3 that I didn't like, 3 that I've liked, and 3 that I've loved. I feel like I'm missing a book somewhere in there. And I'm so happy that this was one I loved. I know not a lot of people liked this one, but I loved it. I mean, as soon as I saw they mentioned an insurance salesman from Lansdale, I'm from Lansdale. It's where I grew up. And so it was just like really interesting to like see my town in a book. It's like a mystery thriller that takes place on a train. I almost said a boat. Oh my goodness, a train. It felt very Agatha Christie-like, which I do enjoy Agatha Christie's books. And the thing is with Riley Sager, there's like twist after twist after twist after twist. I really enjoyed the twists. I found them interesting. I also think the way that I read this book made it more fun, because I don't think I would have liked it as much if I hadn't read it the way I read it. So I read this with my roommate. I would like read out loud, and then all of a sudden we would stop at like certain points and be like, okay, now let's like analyze what we just read and come up with some theories, like what we think is going on. Who do we think has done it? And, or sometimes too, just even be in the middle of a sentence and my roommate would be like, wait, stop. We need to discuss. And I'm like, okay, discuss. What's your thought process here? So even though that made this reading process a lot longer, it did make it more fun. And I did enjoy the twists. I enjoyed the characters, and I found this to be very fun. You know, you're trapped on a train with a murderer, but you don't know who the murderer is. So that's why I think I loved this so much, even though it seemed like a lot of people didn't really like this one that much, but that's okay. I love Riley Sager, and I will continue reading his books. At number 3, I have On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. This I felt like was necessary reading for me, and it's necessary reading for everybody. It is about how to spot tyranny, and then also what you can do to try and stop it, because we in America are living under tyranny right now. It is a very scary time. I'm not gonna lie, I am terrified to be living here, and this was very like helpful and comforting in a sense to like know that like the things that I can do to try and help stop it, or try to help not get it too far, even though it's already there. But yeah, but it's like the 20 different things that you can do, 20 different things to view about your world to see if this is tyranny. Yes, so very helpful, very factual. It's not like an enjoyable read, but it's factual and helpful, and it is needed for this time period. So please read this. At number 2, I have The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I went into this not even like wanting to read it, to be honest. Well, like I wanted to read it a little bit, but I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like it. I'm so happy I read it. So this is just a romance between two ice figure skaters for the Olympics, and what happens during training, what happens during the Olympics, and then of course what happens after. It is a very toxic romance. I'm gonna go in, I need people to be warned about that. It is a toxic romance. I need people to understand that. But at the same time, I loved this story. And the characters were sometimes very insufferable, but like, I feel like that just added to the story and helped make the story more sense. Like, I feel like if they weren't insufferable, it wouldn't make sense. I loved this book. I have nothing more to say about it. And then my number 1 book of the year was Hecate, The Witch by Nagita Gill. I love Nagita Gill. I've read a bunch of her poetry before, and so I was very happy for her to come out with something, and I did not expect this. I also thought when I bought this it was adult, but apparently it is young adult. And this is also the first in a series that I'm so excited for. But Nagita Gill is writing the stories of goddesses from Greek mythology. I believe it's Greek mythology. And our first one that we're meeting and learning about is Hecate. Also, like, this cover is stunning. I don't know how to explain how, like, I hope you guys can see how stunning this cover is. Even like the papers, like, that's stunning. And the sprayed edges. I'm loving the trend of sprayed edges. I know a lot of people on BookTube are not enjoying sprayed edges, but I love it. At least the people I watch on BookTube do not like sprayed edges. I love sprayed edges. But yeah, it's all the way from like childhood to maybe like early adulthood this book is following. And it's told through poetry, so it's very lyrical and prosy. But like this made me cry. I was very much into it, and I'm so excited for the next book. All right, there you have it. Those are all of the books that I read in the year of 2025. I also did this same exact thing for my movies and my TV shows that I watched in 2025. I will link those down below. And hopefully I will see you guys with more videos in 2026. I kind of took a very long break in 2025, but here's to hoping I come back more often. Yeah, bye guys.